What's up, everybody? Ready to actually get people, not just hear the words they're saying.
Climb in.
Yeah, we're diving deep into active listening today using this awesome PDF packed with techniques. And let me tell you, it's got me rethinking, well, pretty much every conversation I've ever had.
It's wild how often we miss those crucial cues,
Yeah.
because we're too busy thinking about our next brilliant point instead of really tuning in.
Ooh, tell me about it.
Right.
And this PDF, it doesn't mess around. It jumps right into how important those nonverbal cues really are. I mean, we all know, eye contact matters.
Of course.
But this gets so much deeper. We're talking body language, mirroring. It's like there's a whole secret conversation happening underneath the words.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. Studies have shown that most of what we communicate doesn't actually come from the words themselves.
Really?
It's everything else. Your tone of voice, your posture, even your facial expressions. Think about it. You can tell if someone's annoyed just by how they say, "I'm fine," right?
Oh, totally. I had this friend, right? And she was telling me about this big vacation she was planning.
Uh-huh.
But her shoulders were practically up to her ears. You know what I mean?
Oh, I've been there.
And I was about to be all like, that's amazing. Where are you going? But this PDF, it really drilled this idea into my head. So I paused and I was just like, hey, are you sure you're okay? You seem really stressed.
Good for you.
And it turns out work was nuts, and she wasn't even sure she could take the time off.
It's those subtle signals that really make a difference. I mean, anyone can say the right words.
Right.
But when you can pick up on those nonverbals, that's when you build real trust. You're not just hearing their words, but you're getting them on a deeper level,
Okay, but how do you even get good at that? Am I just supposed to stare intensely at everyone while they talk? Ask if they're okay every 5 seconds.
Well, thankfully, no. It's more about changing your mindset a bit, shifting from what am I going to say next to what is this person truly trying to communicate. And the PDF really digs into this whole idea of creating space where the other person feels safe to actually open up.
And that starts with not interrupting, which I'm so guilty of. I get excited on the topic or want to jump in with my own story.
Oh, it's such a natural impulse, though. Think of it this way. Imagine you're trying to explain something kind of delicate, something really important to you. And the entire time, the person you're talking to just keeps cutting you off to share their own kind of sort of related story. Do you really feel heard?
Ouch, no. I feel very called out right now, but in a good way.
It's all about finding that balance.
The PDF had this one line, and it really hit home for me. It said, true listening is about quieting your own mind to make space for another person's truth.
Isn't that powerful?
It is.
When you create that space for someone, you're doing so much more than just having a conversation. You're building a real connection. And people, they feel seen, they feel validated. And honestly, that has a much bigger psychological impact than just exchanging information.
And that's where this whole reflecting back thing comes in, right?
Yeah.
The PDF talked about paraphrasing, putting what you heard into your own words, just to, make sure you're both on the same page.
It's like you're holding up a mirror, making sure you're really seeing them, not just the words, but the emotions behind them.
Okay, that makes sense. Although I have to admit, I had this one time, it did not go well. I was trying to paraphrase what my friend was saying about this tough situation at work, and it just landed so wrong. I was going for supportive, but it came out sounding like I was totally minimizing her problems.
Oh, yeah. It happens. It's like any skill takes practice. And the PDF even talks about that. It emphasizes using a respectful tone and actually checking in with the other person. You're not just repeating their words. You're saying, hey, is this what you meant?
Am I getting this right?
Exactly. You two are collaborating to try to understand each other. It's not like a one-way street.
Right, not just taking notes. So we've got these nonverbals down, being patient, reflecting back. What other, active listening secrets does this PDF have?
Okay, get this. It talks about spotting the unsaid.
Spotting the... Hold on, what? Sounds kind of mystical.
Right.
But it's actually really practical.
Okay.
So it's about noticing those little inconsistencies, between someone's words and their nonverbals. So they might say, yeah, everything's fine.
Right, right.
But their voice is all tight and they're avoiding eye contact.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Or when they're telling a story and they just keep twisting their ring even though they're saying everything is fine. Yes. Those little giveaways, they can tell you way more than words alone. And the PDF makes a good point. It's not some kind of party trick. This is about learning to empathize with someone, respond to what they need more effectively.
Wow, so you're tuning into a whole other layer of communication.
Yeah.
How do you even begin to notice that stuff when you're also trying to follow the actual conversation.
That's the thing. The PDF suggested just focusing on one nonverbal cue at a time. So one day, just pay attention to people's hands
Okay.
or their tone of voice. You'll be surprised by what you start to pick up on.
Okay, I like that. Focusing on one thing at a time.
Right.
Not overwhelming yourself, just really tuning into that one channel.
It takes practice, but you can think of it like building a muscle.
Yeah.
You start small, and then you gradually just get more and more aware of all those nuances.
And speaking of tools, this PDF goes on to talk about actual tools. Like, are we supposed to be using whiteboards and stuff in the middle of conversations now?
Well, you don't need to whip out a whiteboard every time you talk to someone, but the PDF makes a good point. Sometimes those visuals, they can be surprisingly helpful.
Yep.
It's not about replacing good listening skills. It's more like you're adding another layer of communication, Make sure everyone is really on the same page.
So not like Googling something while my friend's telling me a story.
Right.
But I don't know, if we're trying to plan a trip together, maybe we jot down some ideas on a notepad.
Exactly. Or let's say someone's explaining something kind of complicated. A quick sketch even can make a huge difference.
Huh.
Everyone processes information a little differently, right?
Yeah.
And those visual cues, they can really help things click into place sometimes.
So it's not really about having the right tool. It's about being open to using whatever helps you understand each other.
That's a good way to put it. And it's a super simple tool that most people don't even think about. Taking notes.
Really?
Not like trying to write down every single word. That's not the point.
Right.
Just jotting down key points, things you might want to circle back to later. It shows the other person you're really engaged. Plus, it helps you remember things later.
But you're proving to them, hey, I'm taking this seriously, this matters. Which actually reminds me of something else the PDF talked about, checking in throughout the conversation.
So important. It's not enough to just think you understand what someone's saying. You've got to make sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And it doesn't have to be anything complicated. Just a quick, this is really interesting, can you tell me more? Or, hold on, let me make sure I'm following you. Can you recap that last part?
It's like you're creating this loop of feedback.
Yes.
To make sure the message is actually being received the way it was intended, not just getting lost somewhere along the way.
Exactly. And the PDF makes a really good point here. Active listening, it's a two-way street. It's on the speaker to try to be clear, and it's on the listener to ask for clarification when they need it.
It's a partnership, not a performance, which honestly is kind of a relief. Takes the pressure off a little bit,
For sure. When you can approach communication that way, it becomes so much less about getting your own point across, more about actually connecting on a deeper level.
Which, isn't that what it's all about?
It really is. It's about those connections you build, fostering understanding, finding ways to have more meaningful conversations with everyone.
This has been great. I feel like I've learned so much. So as we wrap up here, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from all of this?
That's a good question. I would say next time you're talking to someone, really try to focus on understanding not just the words they're saying, but the music behind those words. The tone, the pauses, even their body language, all those subtle cues that tell you so much more than words ever could.
Listen with your whole self, not just your ears. I love that.
Exactly.
So, to everyone listening, keep practicing those active listening skills. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. Every conversation, it's a chance to connect a little deeper. Until next time, happy listening.